So, selection, obviously, from the context, is very physically taxing on the body. I know a lot of unit guys keep those cards close to the chest when it comes to selection because
Yep.
it is a sacred thing. But so I would say the things that are more widely covered and that people already know about. It's a lot of land navigation in the mountains of West Virginia. There's a lot of rucking, and we're talking at breakfast. I think you have a funny story about the 40 miler at the end that you hadn't shared.
I do. That's true. I don't like talking about selection a lot. I think it's something that's sacred and should be a surprise to anyone that's lucky enough to get to experience that amazing school, amazing course, amazing process. The 40 miler is a wide known um, uh, basically goal that everyone, you may not know it's between the day you show up and the end, or between the day you show up and the end, but everyone knows the end is some sort of 40-mile process. You're counting down the days, and you're lucky enough to be on that 40 miler. So I will talk about the 40 miler to an extent. There's still several secrets within the 40 milers future candidates would love to know, but won't hear it today. But my 40 miler. So I get my map, and I get my coordinates, and I get told, hey, go. This is where you're going. Do you have any questions? Just leave it at that. And I said, no, Sergeant Major. He goes, you're free to leave. So part of me knows it's a 40-mile day. I might have to leave a little something in the reserve. Another part of me is like, it's the last thing I got to do. Like, I'm just gonna red line this thing for 40 miles. No standards. I have no idea how long I have, how short, nothing. Um, so I can't help my excitement, and I'm jogging. And I have a personal rule that I have that I never jog uphill. I walk as fast as I can uphill, and I jog the downhills. I think it's counterproductive to run uphill, and then be tired and try to recover downhill. So it was a slight uphill incline, but I was so excited I'm jogging, and I had my red light on my head for just a little bit as I'm looking at my map, and I have my little dummy gun. I have my 70 whatever pound rucksack on my back, and I'm looking and I'm running. I'm looking and I'm running. I'm looking and I'm running, and I trip. I don't know what I stubbed my toe on, but I tripped and I garage sail it. I I mean not just like a couple like stuttering steps and fall on my knee. I immediately put out my hands and swan dive into this dirt road. My rucksack comes up and hits me in the back of the head. I'm pancaked on it, and I'm 90 seconds into my 40 miler. I immediately get up and I look back to see if the sergeant major can see me because I feel like I'm within earshot. Look, it's really low light. He probably heard me do a massive umph and as I hit the ground, but I couldn't see him. He couldn't see me, and so I think I've saved myself the embarrassment. And I remember going, oh, "Gosh, what a way to start this out!" Like I'm hurting. Like it was a hell of a fall. Like, well, yeah, well, got that out of the way. Smooth sailing from here, and I start running. And now I got to make up time because now I feel like because I was on the ground for 10 seconds, but brush myself off and I go. I'm down the road 30 or 45 seconds later when I realize, wait a minute, where's my map? My map was in my hand when I tripped, and I don't know where my map is now. It's not in my hand, it's not in my pocket. Where is my map? And I have this absolute gut wrenching feeling that I've lost. I can't do 40 miles without a map. I'm not. That's so. And I definitely don't want to go all the way back to the sergeant major and say, "Hey, this is embarrassing." And the first 90 seconds of my final event, I lost my map. Uh, so I go back and I'm looking for the massive imprint in the ground that was my body just a minute ago. And ironically enough, it was pretty easy to find out where I fell before that. And I'm looking everywhere, and there's no map to be found. And my heart, and I'm just, time's a ticking. I'm screwing this up. I look to the side of this dirt road. Now, as I'm going the right way, not that I'm going back the wrong way now, but as I was going the correct way moving forward, there's a massive amount of incline to my right on this dirt road. Of course, the level off of the dirt road, and a deep depression of a black abyss to my left. I don't see my map anywhere. This is clearly where I fell. This is clearly the last time I remember seeing my map. And now I have another heart sinking feeling of, did I possibly throw my map down this ravine as I fell? And I look over the edge, and there in the cliff of this ridge is my map, barely hanging by a string
Oh,
on the root sticking out of this thing, probably 15 feet down. And I'm like, I can either go back to the sergeant major and ask for a new map and ask for forgiveness, not even a, or I got to go down there and get this map. So I take off my rucksack and I start scaling down, holding on to roots on the side of this rock cliff. It sounds a little dramatic, but that's what it was. I get it. I put it in my map. I start climbing up, and I'm breaking roots with my weight on the way up, and I can't get back up. And so I shimmy to the left, and I try to grab these roots or these small trees to get back up, and I'm breaking them, and I'm breaking them. And I keep on moving over and over and over. And I'm about on my last option before I have no other options. And I finally have one that sticks long enough in the side as I pull myself up this cliff to get back on the road. I get I get my rucksack on finally. Now I have my map, and now I can start my 40. And I can't think of a more dramatic and crappy way to start off your 40 in the history of the Delta Force than I started out the 40 miler.
that's a great story.
Amazing that I made it with that type of introduction of the 40 miler. Um, you would think I was a clumsy ditz that wasn't going to do well after that. Thankfully, I almost hit a time. For the next however long it took me, I absolutely crushed it. Never missed a point. Never slowed down. Never made a mistake again after that. And I'll say this: I have no problems making mistakes. Clearly, I've made a lot of mistakes, and that wouldn't be the last mistake I made. And I've never prided myself in being a person that cannot make mistakes, but I've prided myself in a person that doesn't make the same mistake twice. I can get pretty creative with my first mistake, but I won't make the same mistake twice. And I think that's something that I would love to, you know, knowledge that and a type of a characteristic trait that I'd love to push down to my son and the next generation.
So on that 40 miler, is it is it more physical or mental?
It's both. You can't, in a weird way, you can't out physical it, and you can't out mental it either. Like it's, I know it sounds like an answer. That's not an answer, but it is both. It is both. It sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not like you do it fresh.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're doing it at the end of selection. Like you've been losing weight and you've been gathering injuries.
Mm.
This whole time. Like you very well may start it out with a limp. It's not ideal, but with that type of carrot dangled in front of you, it's the last thing you got to do. You'll you'll get it.
So the only other thing about selection I'll ask you about is the other part of it, which is I guess it would be like a board at the end, the commander's board, where they try to rattle you. You get in front of the big boss and a big table full of people, and you're standing there in the spotlight.
It's a tough job interview. It's a tough job interview for a tough job. It's what it should be. And I hope someone here gets to experience it. And if they do, find me and write me. I'd, I'd love to hear your experience first, and I'll tell you about mine. Very personable stuff. Very what is really cool about that community and that very small community is the shared experiences. And so I don't care if you're at OTC 4, you know, we get to talk about, selection and what selection was like for me and him, and we have that shared experience because and essentially went to the same selection 30 years later. His board experience, of course, his board's gonna be different based on who his board members were and this and that. But we both went to a board and a very similar board, and we're both gonna have everyone's board is usually pretty interesting. And you're gonna have a board story, and so those are cool stories that um, I hate to say it, are reserved for for each other and that small community, and they're fun stories. But those are for us. Yeah.
It's unfortunate for us that we don't get to hear them, but
Yeah.
if you want to hear them, then
Yeah.
go to selection
That's right.
and make it through.
Yep. Yep.
So the last thing on this, it may not even really pertain to actual selection in West Virginia, but I guess psychologically, just to be frank, like
Mhm.
the kind of person that can go out on a nightly basis and go shoot people in the face and come home and go to sleep right afterwards. Can you select for that?
I guess we do. Yeah. Yeah. There's plenty of um, even though I think psychologists fall short on the PTSD answer. There's a good use for them. We use them heavily in our selection process. Um, but they're not the only ones that select. It's the reason why we have a board. That board we talked about. Like, you're gonna get a lot of questions thrown at you, and those questions are there for a reason, and they're to find out exactly who you are and what you're made of. And I think the selection process is an ongoing process. So they're going to do their best to select the group of men that they say. And here's a saying that didn't make sense to me at the beginning. And they'll say, "Hey, we're not here to choose the best man for the job. We're here to choose the right man for the job." And you would think, well, isn't the best man for the job the right man for the job? Um, and that's not necessarily true. Like there were guys that were faster, stronger, quicker than me at selection, but they weren't my OTC. So you'd think they're the best man for the job because they're absolute studs. But there's something about them that wasn't the right man for the job. So you get assessed as best you can in the snapshot you have in West Virginia. You have a much bigger snapshot in OTC, and at the end of the day, though, that's still just training. You don't know what someone's made of. My first team leader probably didn't say 6 words to me on that team until we went to combat. He didn't care. He didn't care who I was and what I'd done, and I was the number one guy in our class at CQB. He accidentally told me that one time, and he was like, because he hates giving out compliments, to unbattle proven people. Don't get me wrong, he didn't treat me bad, but he definitely wasn't going to spend his time, treating me good without proving it in combat. It's just who he was. So selection is an ongoing event. So we select for it, and we get it right eventually.
So when you think about the right guy, obviously it makes more sense to you now than it did when you first went through. An example I've heard you give is somebody that can switch gears.
Yeah.
What else comes to mind?
Switching gears is definitely a good analogy I want to talk about a little bit more in. Like, you don't go 100% through the house. There's times I have to slow down and take a shot between someone's eyes, and there's times I got to get back, to 100% to get to the next room. There's constant changing of gears and inside of a house. What makes me hate that analogy, or it makes me hate the scenario of football players who are like, oh yeah, I hit him after the whistle, but once I'm in that mindset, I just can't stop. Oh, he stepped out of bounds, I hit him late. Well, I couldn't stop. Like, I was just in that zone of tackling someone. And even though I knew he was out of bounds, I just couldn't stop. If you tell yourself that, yeah, you sure can't stop. Keep telling yourself that. You'll never stop. That would be as crazy as me saying I was just on a roll killing people inside the house. And then when I got to an unarmed civilian, I mowed them down too because I couldn't stop. You're always changing gears from lethal to non lethal to fast to slow. Um, that is something someone has to be able to do, or they won't make it in the hostage rescue unit. The number one characteristic, without a doubt, is problem solving. Problem solving is at the base of everything we do and everything we touch. Take land nav for example. Land nav is just problem solving. What are all those lines on the map mean? How long is it, what's the best route that I should take from this point to the next point? Is it a straight line? Well, I don't know. What's the terrain between me and a straight line? There's a mountain between us. I don't know. Maybe I should go around it. Maybe I should go right up. How tall is that mountain? Everything is a problem solving exercise. CQB is problem solving. The moment you walk through that door, before you get to that door, you're looking at that door. What are the hinges on that door? Is that a pull door? Is that a push door? Is that a metal door? Does it have locks? How many locks does it have? Or as we call them, dogs. When that door opens, is that a corner fed room? Is that a center fed room? Is there an immediate threat within 3 feet of my threshold? Yes or no? There's nothing to my front because it's a corner fed room, then I'm going to make a left and go towards what I'm hoping is to be a threat. Is there an open door, a closed door? The problem solving never stops, and it happens at a much faster level at CQB, at a level that honestly it's hard to understand unless you've done it at a very high level. The problem solving in land nav is a very slow, methodical, yet you'll have to do it for a long time, always be right, and do it when you're tired. It's two very different types of problem solving. But at the end of the day, problem solving is the number one attribute you can get from your operators.
Mm.
You get a room full of problem solvers that just happen to be motivated, alphas. Well, you got the Delta Force. You got the world's most fierce fighting force that can take on problems that aren't necessarily in their wheelhouse. Syria was not in our wheelhouse. That was a Green Beret problem. Syria should have been marching down Syria with the Kurds against ISIS. But at the end of the day, you don't always put the best guy for the job. You put the right guy for the job. And the Delta Force is the right guy for any job.
If you like this clip and you want to watch another, click here. And if you want to watch the full interview, click here.